again, we're just looking at some notes on this section, just some things to fill in before we talk about the math during class. The first terminology that I want to go over with you is what exactly is a matrix? What is a matrix? A matrix is simply going to be a rectangular array of numbers, a rectangular array of numbers. You'll notice that down below I have two examples. This is an example of a matrix, and this right here is an example of a matrix. They are both a rectangular array of numbers. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the order of a matrix or the size of a matrix. This is the number of rows by the number of columns. That X there stands for the word by. The number of rows by the number of columns. We'll talk about these two examples, but go ahead and see if you can figure out what the order of these two matrices are, and then in class we'll talk about it. Then you have something called an augmented matrix. An augmented matrix is where you can change a system of equations. You'll notice that here in number 12, this is a system of equations like we had back in section 6.1. You can change a system of equations into a matrix. So the way that you do that is, first of all, you only use coefficients. So you'll notice that this first column, the coefficients are these numbers right here. So that first column is my X coefficients. The next column is my Y coefficients. The third column is my Z coefficients. And then the last column, this is my constant column. And you'll notice that I have this bar in between, and this bar represents the equal sign. This is what an augmented matrix looks like. So you might want to take something like number 14 and turn it into an augmented matrix, or number 18, work backwards and turn it into a system of equations. The fourth term that I'd like to go through with you is called row echelon form. Row echelon form says that you have a matrix, an augmented matrix, where ones are on the diagonal, zeros are the numbers underneath the diagonal, and then I can have any other number above the diagonal. So I'm just going to choose some random numbers. We'll say a -4, a 2, a 1.5, and then over for my constant column, maybe a 7, a -1, and a 6. This is a matrix that is in row echelon form. This is only slightly different from a matrix that is in reduced row echelon form. So number 5 term is reduced row echelon form. You have ones on the diagonal. You have zeros underneath the diagonal. This is just exactly like row echelon. But then you also have zeros above the diagonal. Now my constant column can be any number. So maybe it will be a -2, a 1.9, and a 57. Just any numbers over there in my constant column. Come back to class and we'll talk more about these terms, and we will use them in this section.